Claire Fox, I'm going to bring you in next. Where do you stand on it all?
Well, I mean, watching the result come through, kind of gave me a gulp, actually, because I was there.
It gave him a gulp as well. But
no, but I remember it so well. I mean, I couldn't believe it, but of course I was delighted. But the reason why, I mean, it feels a lot longer than 6 years, and the reason was because this date hasn't made the same impact on my mind as it should have done, because actually the day after it became very clear that it wasn't going to happen. Or not the day after, but, I just thought, well, we voted to leave the European Union, something will happen. But it took years before we actually got to a point where, you'll know, by 2019, when some of us from all sorts of different political backgrounds, that's where I kind of got to know Martin, stood for the Brexit Party. The only reason we did that was because actually I just thought, oh, my God, we're not going to leave the European Union. So in a way, it's just such a relief that we actually formally left. But it's true that the deal that we had was not great. Anyway, I however, would like to, sort of celebrate a little bit this bit. Brexit was never an end point for me. It was a process. And the process was to remove an anti-democratic body that told British citizens that they couldn't do anything about a whole range of laws that were being imposed on them. It was, in that sense, just stopped you ever feeling as though you had control over your politics. So, I mean, Martin mentioned the sunlit uplands. I mean, I never thought there were going to be any. Certainly didn't believe what was on the side of a bus, and I couldn't care what colour my passport is. But I do care that what has started to happen is that we have started to pull away the excuse that British politicians had. Because I know that British politicians, Tories, Labour, Lib Dems, they'd come rather smugly and say, oh, well, it's not our fault, you see, it's happening over in the EU, even though they probably went to the EU and suggested it in the first place. I mean, it was always that kind of a ruse. It was a way of protecting decision-making from democratic accountability. And that bit has started, but God knows we've got a lot further to go. And I sit in the House of Lords, which is unelected. I mean, that's an undemocratic chamber that should be got rid of, right? That's obviously part of the deal. There's loads of other problems, but this was at least a start. Just one tiny other bit. I want to give a shout-out to the RMT. The RMT were the union that I actually had a lot to do with in the build-up to the referendum, because they were the one trade union that urged their voters to vote leave. And they always said it was about taking back control and having control, that they would sort of decide when they went on strike, or they weren't going to have anything. And those guys who went on strike yesterday stood and were vilified by people who call them fascists and all the rest of it. But in the spirit of Bob Crow and in the spirit of the people who lead the union now, despite the fact people said they were alt-right and they'd sold out, they, like myself, in the spirit of Tony Benn, voted for democracy. And good on them.